Alumna de los programas ejecutivos del Instituto de Altos Estudios de la Defensa Nacional y la Singularity University. Claire hoy nos deja la presentación Medir el retorno nacional de la inversión pública.
Dear colleague, it's an honor to join you for this meeting, even if only virtually. It's my pleasure to join you. My name is Claire Joly. I head the OECD Space Forum within the Directorate for Science, Technology and Innovation at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. I thank my colleague from Unoosa for inviting me and my team to participate to this particular seminar. And
recording in progress.
Findings on measuring returns on public investment in the context of space program. Just to give you some insights on where I'm coming from here, I had this OECD Space Forum, which is really an international hub for experts, economists. We have space agencies forming the steering group of the Space Forum with a number of ministries, and we work very much with different institutions, academia, private sector, and industry associations to investigate the space sector's economic dimension and innovation role for the wider economy. Let me just mention here two major publications, one of which I'll come back to. It's the OECD Handbook on Measuring the Space Economy, and another one on Earth's Orbit at Risk, the Economics of Space Sustainability. Space sustainability is a hot topic for all of us, and we just launched a large international project on the economics of space sustainability, where we invite students, professors, academic players to join us in trying to develop new economic research specifically on the impacts of space debris accidents. So this is very exciting work here that we're doing, essentially with an economic angle, so that it complements well other bodies, particularly the work, for instance, of our UN colleagues. So this is mainly the contents of my presentation. I will provide some background on how the transformation of the space sector is really speeding up, I would say, and why the demand of evaluation and impact assessment is growing, and what kind of solutions can we bring to emerging space countries. In terms of the transformation of the space sector, I've included here a few indicators that you can find in the Space Economy in Figures, a report that we published already a few years ago, and that we are right now in the process of updating. The new Space Economy in Figures will be launched in the spring of 2023. But what's very important here with some of the updated indicators is that we're seeing now close to 90 countries who had a registered satellite in orbit. There are many newcomers from developing countries in particular, and also we're seeing that many countries are trying to enter the space sector as a way to enter other high-tech global value chains. We believe that indeed there's a strong interest in many different families, I would say, of space applications with a lot of interest. This translates in space budgets at institutional level, and they're really at their highest since the Apollo era. It still overall represents a tiny part of GDP for most countries in the world. And we believe it's important to take into account also growing commercial activities and of course, I would say private investments that are made in the space sector. But still, commercial and private investments are still quite small as compared to this important government space budget. And that really leads us to this growing demand then on evaluation, generally of science and technology, but also of space investments in general. We have never globally spent so much on space. And the question that we are hearing very often is it worth public investments? Indeed, this demand for evaluation is increasing as a tool for priority setting and decision making. Not all countries can actually spend as much as some of the largest OECD countries, and there's a big question of how much should we spend? We're seeing this evolving from actually just evaluating quality of research to really assessing the outcomes, outputs, impacts of public R&D. So the evaluation capacity remains overall weak and fragmented in many countries. We know, of course, that the evaluation is not always easy of large programs, including space programs. There's a typical role of outside evaluators. The importance of standards is growing for evaluation. The need for a handbook is always useful. We see quite a number of stakeholders outside the research establishment getting involved. And the good news is that more and more evaluation impact assessment can be conducted in light of international comparisons. A country, a ministry, is not alone in this exercise. At the end of the day, the evaluation of public policies, especially in those areas where countries are competing, well, it cannot be done without reference to international benchmarks. And this is here a message. International cooperation to learn more about evaluation practice is really important. Maybe a note on impact assessment. It's a bit different from the pure evaluation of programs, but the rationale for actually conducting more impact assessment is expanding. It's more about trying to find out where, who, and how much to fund research and try to anticipate what society gets in return. Typically, we're seeing more and more impact studies of space investments trying to look at the economic effects, not only on the actual space sector or the results of a mission, but also in terms of, does it really help in terms of environmental monitoring? Do we even get even better health outcomes at the end of the day? Let me maybe just share here an example. The fact of using remote sensing can actually provide quite a bit of information in terms of assessing where future sources of sickness could come. It's just one element, but we are seeing this in particular for malaria, where there are quite a number of examples and well peer-reviewed research that has been conducted, allowing to connect not only the pure science, I would say, the actual missions, but also the effects that we get from using the information derived from these missions. So I just gave an example, but obviously measuring impacts is not straightforward. It's not an easy task, especially as regards to demonstrating causality. Many of the dimensions are not easily captured, are sometimes less tangible, and that's very true for a number of space applications, and sometimes difficult to link to policy interventions. Particularly, returns from large-scale public investments, typically in satellite missions, are not always evident, immediate, or sustained over time. So these are caveats that I think really need to be taken into account whenever conducting impact assessments. Also, the choice of methodology is not universal, but always context-specific. You cannot use apples and oranges, bananas and ananas to actually give numbers. You need specific metrics for an economic impact study with a number of factors that are listed here in terms of not only the objectives of the study, the timing of the exercise, the available assessment expertise, and the quality of primary data sources, both on the benefits and costs. Just to give some examples, we conducted at the OECD an analysis of existing case studies from the space sector focusing on a very wide set of space-related programs and investments. The datasets comprise studies performed internally by space and non-space organizations, as well as some academic papers. Out of this thorough research and analysis, we actually found a number of sectors that do benefit from socio-economic effects derived from space investments. They're listed here. In most studies, we find some results that are benefiting the overall economy, but also in terms of environmental management, transport and urban planning, R&D and science, that seems quite evident, but it's nice to see here, climate monitoring and meteorology and telecommunications. Defense and security, of course, is included, as well as energy and agriculture. These are some of the top sectors that are really benefiting, I would say, from initial space investments in dedicated applications most of the time. So there are indeed a number of benefits that are derived. But still, at national level, we need to be able to actually provide credible information, credible data. The evaluation and impact assessment changes depending on the levels of decision making, from government, looking at the budget allocations, to space agencies or space-related agencies that have been drawn or put together to monitor programs. And obviously, the private sector and space-related businesses not only are looking at their own business plans, but need to make some investment decisions. So there are a number of methodologies here that exist, from the cost-benefit analysis all the way to multi-criteria analysis. Again, the context will be important to pick and choose. So I will actually stop here and actually give some advice in terms of how to go next. We just published this OECD handbook on measuring the space economy. 10 years after the first handbook, we were very happy to have it out, and it's been put together following a large consultation and the involvement of more than 100 organizations. It provides definitions to promote international comparability. It provides very important guidelines for industry surveys and data collection, so that you can actually map better your space activities, space actors, and really at many different levels. And it also provides some concrete advice on evaluation and impact assessment of space programs. At the end of the day, this is a good starting point for many emerging countries in particular to actually get a sense of how to track better their initial space investments. So with this, I will stop here my presentation. I thank again the organizers, and should you have any questions, comments, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. So thanks again to everybody. Bye.
Agradecemos a la distancia Claire por dejarnos esta presentación. Dado que fue un video pregrabado, no va a poder haber espacio para preguntas, por lo que pasaremos a la siguiente sección del taller de la discusión de ejercicios basados en escenarios, y para ello dejaremos a Rosana Hoffman liderar este segmento. Muchas gracias.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to the last, maybe most exciting day of the technical advisory mission. Most exciting for us because you now get to work. We get to sit back. No, not quite. We're of course here to assist you in this next step. What I would like to very briefly do is share my screen again, just because there is a slight change to the program times. And I just want to let you know, in the morning, the discussion point number 2, so the questions that are part of number 2, please take 30 minutes now to start with them in your groups. But as you see here, before lunch, we have another 1.5 hours for discussion point 3. Here, I would please ask you to take 30 minutes to finish discussion point 2, and then use 1 hour for discussion point 3. You will then have, and this is an important point, after lunch, I would ask all of the groups to finalize their presentations. And when I mean finalized presentations, I know that it's not typical for you to sit here with your laptop. So if somebody in your team, if each team does not have a laptop, that's okay. You can also do the presentations without slides, but you would have to note down your answers, because the idea is that then in the afternoon, we ask group 1 to come forward, present their answers to discussion point 1. Then group 2, 3, 4. And then we continue discussion point 2, discussion point 3. And together we look into the answers and see, is that the correct approach? Should something else have been considered as well? So we're really here not to criticize, but really to help you understand if anything is not clear. Any questions on this before you start with discussion point 2? No questions? I would ask you to please go back to your groups, group 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know that there's not that many people in the room today. I hope there's enough per group. I hope you remember your groups. We will give you time to start, and we are here and we will help you then when you have questions. Thank you so much. Finish that. If you have, please start on discussion point 2. Thank you so much.